Dear audience, welcome to the show POWERchat. In today's episode, we are discussing about the electoral support from the international community, especially that of the International Foundation of Electoral System. Joining me today is Elizabeth Cote, Country Director of International Foundation of Electoral System. Please allow me to welcome her. Welcome to the show, Ms. Cote.
Thank you very much.
How have you been?
I've been very well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
You are here for last 2.5 years as the country director of IFES, International Foundation of Electoral System, which works with the government, constitutional bodies, and the civil society organization to ensure free and fair elections, to support the electoral system. What is your experience working with different diverse communities from civil society organizations to government bodies?
Well, the important part of our program is to support the Election Commission of Nepal, the ECN, and as you may know, it's one of the most important, and I think its credibility has been proven through these last elections. And so it's definitely a good experience for us to be working with them because they're hardworking. So, and it's not an effort. We're not sort of pushing and pulling as sometimes it can be in other countries. So, and on that side, we provide basically very sort of technical assistance. I guess our value added would be to bring in international best practices and on certain really technical issues like quota representation or ballot paper design and production. So the ECN, as you know, has a lot of rotation within its staff. So it's sort of an ongoing assistance that we've been providing through the years. And parallel to that, we are also supporting civil society.
So your support to Election Commission of Nepal is a kind of technical support or financial support in the process of elections?
Yes, we're basically, our main donor is USAID, the United States Agency for International Development, and who they do not have as a practice to provide direct support, financial support to institutions. So we're an implementing partner for them. And we do provide financial assistance and technical assistance, for instance, capacity building of election officers and all. You know, it's very expensive.
Well, I'll come back to you about your work and your working modality with diverse partners here. What is your impression about Nepal's diverse socio-political and economic diversities here? You might have visited the places and you might have met so many people of the diverse field. What is your impression of that?
I have. Well, you know, I'm not going to teach you about the diversity, but I mean, it's an amazing plethora of ethnic groups and cultures. Even, you know, a 4-day walk from one village to another, it's another language and it's another culture. It has its great richness. It's also a challenge, you know, because it's difficult in these times, I would say, for some communities to have like some kind of sustainable quality of life, being in such remote, beautiful places, but so remote for health centers and water. And I think the earthquake has shown a lot of these challenges. I think that I come from also a country where we have indigenous minority, which we have still to this day not found a solution for. So I think with this, Nepal, a country as a whole, I think has a will to address the situation of minority groups. As a whole, as a country, then individual people react in different ways, but I think that the Constitution has shown, I mean, it has shown its limits as well, but it has shown a definite will to address these issues in the best way that the drafters felt that they could at that time.
Would you tell us more about the work of your organization, International Foundation of Electoral System? How does it work? What is its global mandate? And how IFES is working in Nepal with the diverse stakeholders?
So IFES is an organization that was founded in 1987, and it was at the time of the dismantlement of the Soviet Union, and also a lot of rising democracies in Latin America and so on. And our founder was a retired person of the election administration in the US, and realized that there was a lot of organizations for health, education, environment, but there was no really organization working to provide democratic assistance at that time. And so basically how we work is when there is a need, when a government will require it, we can come for providing technical assistance on constitution drafting or on legal framework for elections and so on. So here in Nepal, we've been here present since 1999. I think my predecessors were working with the Royal Commission of Nepal. We were mainly involved in the from 2004 to 2008, the first CA elections, and also the second one. And so providing a lot of technical assistance to the ECN. As you know, in times of election, everything becomes voluminous, the work at hand, so we were full-fledged working with them. And because we're also supporting them in their efforts for voter education and civic education, we've also started working with civil society organizations, and our main focus really with them is to target traditionally marginalized groups, to bring them on board for the electoral process and political processes.
Well, how do you evaluate or assess the capacity of state agencies, especially that of the Election Commission and its regional or district level bodies, to deliver knowledge to the people living in the remote part of this country, especially that of the voter education, so that the activities motivate individuals or citizens to engage or participate in the electoral process? Is it motivating, or there is something lacking?
Well, it's a state agency, and it has its budgetary limits and its human resources limits as well. But the Election Education and Information Center, which is within the ECN, the EEIC, which we call, is very active. I mean, they've developed a lot of curriculum and so on. There's now, the will is there. The will of the ECN is there. For instance, they're now aiming to train all the social study teachers from the public and the private sector. So we're UNDP, ESP, and IFES, we're partners supporting that. We've already trained over 2,000 social study teachers, and they basically afterwards go into their grade 10 classroom.
Of the government schools?
Government and private both.
Schools.
We're really, the goal is to really touch all the teachers, and they're 2-3 day training, and they do mock polling, and it's very interactive. They learn also skills of pedagogical skills, and then this is all for the new voters that are coming out all the time. So this is one aspect of voter education that is done. The ECN cannot reach everybody. At time of elections, they do a lot of PSA, and they work with radio and media. What is the value added of the civil society organizations? You have Dalit organizations reaching out to Dalit, you have women's groups, youth groups, and so on. So it's peer-to-peer education that is happening. And we support the ECN when they're doing voter registration drives, for instance. And we realized in the course of this support that in order to register on the voter roll, you need to have a citizenship certificate, and that's many people, and especially these communities, do not have their citizenship certificate. So we provide support for these people with disability, Muslim women, freed Kamayas, all these groups, to get on board, to get their citizenship certificate, and then to register on the voters roll, and at the same time awareness, sessions and so on, so that they understand what it is all about. We don't work with the sensitive, difficult cases of citizenship, but the ones which are, classic eligibility for citizenship, we provide support to them.
Do you think that the public from the countryside, the rural places of this country, are able to bargain with the state agencies in terms of the facilities provided to them to stand for elections and to participate in the electoral processes?
Well, it's difficult, but the first step is for them to know that these things exist. I mean, you have, your person behind his water buffaloes tilling a rice paddy, and if you talk to him about decentralization of power and local bodies and state assembly members and all that. So it's basically the ABC, very simple explanation of how the system works, and then informing them of the advantages of having the citizenship certificate for different trainings that are organized at the VDC level and so on, disability cards, it's so I would, to answer your questions, it is very difficult in a country like Nepal to bring everybody on board, and this is the work we're doing. It's like, door to door, people to people, information and education.
Well, Ms. Cote, you at the beginning said that International Foundation of Electoral System, the institution started at the time of crisis during the collapse of USSR, and you faced with some challenges. How do you observe the political transition of the countries like Nepal, and how your support goes to the stakeholders to strengthen their capacities to engage in the electoral systems or the elections?
Well, I'm a very firm believer of civil society. In my past work in other countries, I was really trying to, I don't want to scare anybody, but to empower civil society so that they realize, as a neutral, non-political force, how much they can do to raise the demand for service delivery. I think for any political transition like this, civil society has a very important role to play. It can be, the judiciary, it can be really the private sector as well. Everybody should sort of join hands and engage in this transition. And usually people don't do that. They think it's the state, it's all the obligation of the state, and then there's the political parties. Nepal has a lot of challenges with its civil society because of this very strong political context that you have. The political parties, you have over 160 political parties, and so they're everywhere and they're active, and they have their own civil society and so on. So it makes my work more challenging as far as having really some sort of non-partisan advocacy for something. For instance, we work with organizations at the very local level. There are forums, voters' forums, they call themselves, and at the district level forums. And they've been advocating for local elections for a few years now. And there is a similar type of voters' forum at the national level called the Voters' Rights Forum.
That's a loose forum?
It's a loose forum. Okay. And it's basically organizations that have gotten together. There's sort of a 21-member steering committee, and then maybe 90 members across,
Is that the part of IFES?
Well,
your work?
Our partners were leading that, and we did support that. And now I think they're flying, on their own. But if, for instance, if they want to carry out a study on the political participation of disabled women or something, we can find, some funding for things like that. They work very closely also with the Election Commission of Nepal. There has been some trust building there, I would say. The Election Commission of Nepal and civil society organizations are now collaborating much more closely, rather than looking at each other a little bit like if they were, from different ideologies or somehow.
Ms. Cote, addressing a diversity is always a challenge, and you said that you work with the civil society and Election Commission of Nepal.
Mm-hmm.
What are your plans working with the media institutions or the media fraternity, preparing messages to reach out the large number of people?
We do work with the media. We've last year we ran a magazine. It was a little bit of a pilot project. We our civil society partners in 25 districts were working together with community radios, providing information on different democracy-related issues, on local governments and all these issues, the different elections, the election provisions in the Constitution. And this year we're starting, actually, as of next week, also another series. And basically we're going to be working in 61 districts, we're trying to cover 61 districts with 32 community radios. And there's going to be a radio drama, there's going to be also sort of national democracy election related news, there's going to be vox pop, as people really enjoy, and it's going to be in basically 5 languages, and even I think in some more smaller community radios it's going to be in several other languages that they will be interpreting things in. So we're doing that. I'm a firm believer of radio broadcasting. As far as outside of media, we've been doing street theater, and especially during election time, because this is when also funds become more available for this kind of work. Just a lot of voter education through all sorts of platforms, awareness. We also work with the Nepal Law Society, who have these civic initiative centers. They were formerly Constitution Information Centers that now have become civic initiative centers, and where they do constitution literacy. They work closely with Parliament, the parliamentarians, and we provide it's in the 14 zones of the country, and we provide some funding to them to be able to reach out to our marginalized communities in VDCs.
Ensuring free and fair election is one of the major indicators of participatory democracy. But here you see in Nepal for long, it's more than 1.5 decades that local elections were not held. How do you work with the institutions here, including that of the Election Commission, political parties, the parliamentarians, to ensure and convince them that the elections are periodic? So to represent the voice of the public. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. It's been too
long. What are your plans, or what have you worked in the past so that there are periodic elections? And how difficult it is to work when there is a political mechanism exists, but elections are delayed?
Well, we've held a nationwide dialogue we did it in collaboration with the National Democratic Institute 2 years ago on electoral reform and on the political party law and the role of civil society in administration, and also of what is an independent election commission. And recommendations came out of that, and one of them was for the Election Commission to be able to decide the date of the election. Because what is happening is that the country is sort of taken hostage in a way by political parties who will decide when they are ready to win. They'll say we can have an election, and not every party can win. So this is what creates the stagnation. It would have to be a good, auspicious time for all the political parties to come aboard. So this is why in most countries it's really the election commission that decides on the date of the elections or the constitution. So there was a lot of advocacy prior to, during the drafting of the constitution by civil society organizations and also by the ECN to try and reform this type of thing. But these things happen when the country is ready, and obviously it was not ready because the constitution came out. And
often we see that there is a political commitment from the parties to go for elections, but it's not happening. What are the reasons behind the announcement of the election dates?
Well, I think that it's always a good image to say that you want elections, and the political parties should, in principle, want elections because this is what brings them to power. I think somehow political parties can have the idea that when a specific political party is in power, it will have a tendency to win an election. I think that's a little bit retrograde thinking. Because a country like Nepal, I think, has proven that it can run free and fair elections that are accepted by everyone. But in the old days and in many countries, I come from the African continent where I've been working for many years, and of course, the people in power, they use all the government facilities, they block the opposition from speaking.
So you mean everyone here, especially that of the political parties, looking for an opportunity so that elections go in their favor?
Of course. I mean, so we're trying to, and we're working now with the ECN on the ECN wants to train political parties.
Don't you think that is a kind of obstacle to the free and fair elections?
To want to win. It's human nature. It's human nature, but I think, it's also an evolution of mentalities in that area. I call it the art of losing, It's a game, and if there's, if there are regular elections, so you lose for 4 years and then you work your best to win the next one and so on. There are also many political parties in Nepal, so that is another issue. It would be interesting to see how there could be more fusions when the ideologies are similar, to boil down to less, maybe 20 political parties. It doesn't have to be 2 necessarily, like in some of the countries, but to keep everybody on board and satisfied and to have this consensus, it makes it difficult.
Well, Ms. Cote, we are coming to the end of the show.
Okay.
You touched upon many issues.
Yes.
Do you have anything to share to our audience?
Well, as you know, I will be leaving Nepal, and I'm full of gratitude to this beautiful country. I was here in 1975, 42 years ago, visiting, and had spent most of my adult life wanting to come back, and my destiny was not such. So that when finally I came back, I was able to basically conclude a little bit my career here. And I've learned a great deal. Nepali people are wonderful people, you know that. And no matter from which group they are coming from, they have that heart on their hands.
It is because diversity exists.
Diversity, and I think a very specific, auspicious geographic situation in these, with the highest mountains, and of course it brings you some challenges as well.
Well, Ms. Cote, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much. It was also a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Dear audience, time now to wrap up the show. Keep watching us. See you next week. Namaste.